Greetings, welcome to Facts About Everything. I'm your host, James Egan. Today on Wolverine Week, we'll be talking about Wolverine! I had to do this video with this t-shirt. Depressingly, my wife could only name, I think, 3 people in this. She couldn't even recognize Wolverine because she's never seen him in a yellow costume. Logan debuted as Wolverine in Incredible Hulk number 180 in 1974. He was born in the 1880s. Logan is a mutant with the power to heal extremely quickly. His healing factor makes him age very slowly. Even though he is over 100, he doesn't even look half that age. He has heightened senses. His sense of smell is so strong that he can recognize anyone from their scent, even if he met them once. He also has bone claws underneath his knuckles. He can sheathe and unsheathe them instinctively. Although Wolverine goes by the name of Logan, his real name is James Howlett. He was raised by a wealthy Canadian landowner called John Howlett. John was killed by his groundskeeper, Thomas Logan, who was Wolverine's real father. In a rage, Wolverine's mutation activated and he sprouted his signature claws. He stabbed Thomas Logan with his claws, killing him. James Howlett's mother, Elizabeth, banished James for taking her own life. James Howlett took on Logan's name afterward to protect his identity. His brother died when James Howlett was a young boy. His mother, Mrs. Howlett, was so devastated by the death, she was taken to a madhouse. When she returned, she was never the same. The first person he ever loved was a girl called Rose. She was his neighbor when he was a child. He was about to kill someone with his claws when Rose tried to stop him. He actually stabbed Rose, killing her. Logan joined the X-Men in Giant-Size X-Men in 1975. Decades ago, Wolverine volunteered for the Weapon X program, an experiment to create the world's greatest soldier. The facility erased Logan's entire memory and grafted an indestructible metal called adamantium to his bones. As soon as he woke up, he attacked the scientists and escaped. When Wolverine fled from the facility, he had no memory or personality. He was a feral creature without a shred of civility. The Hudson family eventually found him and nursed him until he regained his humanity. The Hudsons, James and Heather, were government agents who worked for Department H. They allowed Wolverine to join them as an intelligence officer. He also joined their superhero team, Alpha Flight. Alpha Flight gave him the codename Wolverine. This was the first time he was referred to by this name. His very first mission involved a confrontation with the Hulk. After he joined the X-Men, Professor X installed level 9 psi shields in Wolverine's brain. No one could read his mind except a level 10 psychic like Jean Grey, Emma Frost, or Professor X. Although he's one of the most popular superheroes in the world, he was nearly killed off shortly after his debut. He joined the X-Men the same time as another X-Men called Thunderbird. However, readers found the two X-Men's appearance too similar. X-Men had poor sales for years, so they decided to kill off one of these characters to get a sales boost as well as fixing the Wolverine Thunderbird problem. There's a creature from Central Africa called the Wolf's Mona monkey. It has been nicknamed the Wolverine monkey. Old Man Logan is considered to be one of the best Wolverine comics ever. 50 years have passed and Wolverine has retired from his violent ways. There was an incident that occurred in the past where the heroes fell and the bad guys have been calling the shots ever since. The incident was so devastating that Wolverine hasn't raised his voice or popped his claws in close to 50 years. The title Old Man Logan is a reference to the film Logan's Run, where a person called the Old Man tells Logan the truth about the world. There's an old Chinese proverb that says, before setting out revenge, first dig 2 graves. Wolverine has his own saying, before setting out on revenge, first dig 10 graves. Saves time later. The Avenger and mutant Scarlet Witch used her reality-warping powers to change the world so that everyone she cared about obtained their greatest wish. Magneto became the ruler of Earth as he always desired, and mutants were in charge as they always dreamed and were no longer oppressed. And Wolverine got his memory back. All of it. Many people assume Wolverine was a good man before he was turned into Weapon X. He was a sadistic army officer who was responsible for many atrocities, including murder, enslavement, torture, and genetic experiments. Wolverine used to work for the CIA. While Wolverine was working for them, he saved Spider-Man's parents from Hydra. Magneto tore the adamantium from Wolverine's skeleton. Although Wolverine survived, his healing factor went on overdrive, which made him more animalistic. The first time Wolverine was ever called Logan was by a leprechaun when the X-Men went to Ireland. Because when you go to Ireland, you just bump into leprechauns. It wasn't revealed until Wolverine 75 in 1993 that Wolverine had bone claws. This was immediately after he lost his metal skeleton thanks to Magneto. Not even Wolverine knew this. Wolverine eventually regained his adamantium skeleton in Wolverine 145 in 1999. Wolverine was originally assigned to kill Captain America. The first thing he ever said to Captain America was, like the suit, just a thing for playing it sly and sneaky. He met F. Scott Fitzgerald, who was the writer of The Great Gatsby. He was in Nagasaki in 1945 when the city was hit with an atomic bomb. It was only revealed in Uncanny X-Men 98 in 1975 that Wolverine's metal claws were built into his hands. Wolverine is one of 2 characters that have been on the 3 main Marvel teams, the X-Men, the Avengers, and the Fantastic Four. Wolverine was a leader of a team called X-Force. They were a Black Ops version of X-Men designed to do the dirty jobs that the X-Men would never do. Most of the X-Men didn't even know X-Force existed. He was originally going to be called the Badger. In his first appearance, it wasn't decided that Wolverine was a mutant. He was simply a teenager with heightened senses and an animal rage. He didn't have a healing factor, and his metal claws were from his gloves and not built into his hands. Before he joined the X-Men, the Canadian government considered turning Wolverine into Captain Canada. Anytime Wolverine needs to locate overseas criminals, he usually ventures to the Asian country Madripoor. Madripoor is a den for thieves, the mafia, Hydra, crime lords, and the evilest villains in the world. To avoid being affiliated with the X-Men while he is in Madripoor, Wolverine sports an eye patch and goes by the name Patch. Sure, that disguise will work. It's not like the adamantium claws are a dead giveaway. They are. Many people assume that Wolverine has a high immunity to pain due to his healing factor. He doesn't. This means that every time he regrows his limbs or his face, he suffers inconceivable agony. He's not even immune to pain from unsheathing his claws. His claws cut open his flesh every time he pops them. When he retracts the claws, the wound heals immediately. In spite of the fact he's done this many times, Wolverine says it's extremely painful. He can usually tell if people are related as their senses are familiar. Wolverine has slept with aliens. Many times. During a fight, the Hulk ate Wolverine. He defeated the Hulk by hacking out of his body. Wolverine has been crucified. Wolverine combs his hair with his claws. Wolverine doesn't think he's good at fighting until he gets angry. He says he needs to get hit a few times before he unleashes his berserker rage. In fact, if anyone punches Wolverine, even an ally, he instinctively goes into a berserker rage. Wolverine learned of a conspiracy run by Damage Control. Every time superheroes battle a monster or a giant robot, a lot of buildings and structures get damaged or destroyed. When this happens, Damage Control makes a lot of money. To maximize profits, the Damage Control CEO gave mutant steroids to superpowered beings to cause as much damage as possible. After Wolverine learned this, he had a word with the CEO. That chat ended with Wolverine skewering his face. His original costume had whiskers. When he died, one of many times, he perceives the afterlife as a bar. Wolverine can be technically dead for seconds or minutes, but resurrect himself due to his healing powers. When he is dead, his soul is transported to a purgatory where he fights an angel of death called Lazer. If he defeats Lazer, Wolverine is transported back to reality. If Lazer defeats him, Wolverine will stay dead. Wolverine first met Lazer in the real world during World War I. Despite his popularity, Wolverine was probably the last major superhero to join the Avengers. Wolverine has been possessed by a demon to become the Helverine. His healing factor metabolizes alcohol so quickly that he would have to drink 10 shots in a row to feel drunk. However, the sensation only lasts for a few seconds. Wolverine has to tilt his fists downward when he unsheathes his claws. Once, he forgot to do this and made his claws come out of his palms. He shaves his face with his claws. It only takes a few seconds because although he repeatedly cuts himself, his wounds heal almost instantly. He fought in World War I and fought alongside Captain America in World War II. Okay, let's look at Wolverine's family tree. Wolverine's uncle, Frederick Hudson, had an illegitimate child called Frederick Jr. Fred Jr. had 3 children. The first was Truett Hudson. Truett is the professor that supervised the Weapon X program. This means that Truett is a distant relative to Wolverine. Do you remember in my Weapon X video where I said, don't forget that name, Truett Hudson? Now you know why. Frederick Jr. had another son called Victor Hudson. He was a blind and mute mutant with vast strength. Frederick's 3rd child was James Hudson. He went on to become Guardian, the leader of the Canadian super team, Alpha Flight. In 2013, IGN's top 100 comic book heroes of all time ranked Wolverine at number 4. They also ranked him at number 3 in the Greatest X-Men in 2006, and they ranked him at number 5 in the list of Greatest Avengers in 2012. Comics Alliance ranked Wolverine at number 41 in their list of sexiest male characters in comics in 2013. Wolverine is only 5'3". He weighs 300 pounds. His adamantium skeleton alone weighs 105 pounds. The thing that makes Wolverine angrier than anything is when someone messes with his mind. If someone tries to brainwash him or read his mind without his permission, he tends to go into a berserker rage. In fact, when he learned that Nick Fury was tampering with his mind, he instinctively stabbed him to death. It turns out that Nick Fury was actually a life model decoy robot, but it does show that Wolverine was ready to kill Nick Fury. After Wolverine escaped Weapon X, he met a Spanish girl. He slept with her in an orange grove. The next day, she was gone. Wolverine never saw her again, she never spoke a word, and he never knew her name. Wolverine says that this was the first person he ever slept with. Wolverine's first solo comic was Wolverine 1 Limited Series. It heavily inspired the film, The Wolverine. The adamantium in his skeleton is so powerful it can survive multiple nuclear explosions with the slightest effect. Although Wolverine's best known for his yellow uniform, the outfit that he's worn the most in the comics is actually his brown uniform. Wolverine's bedroom says, Logan's quarters, warning, trespassers will be stabbed repeatedly. His first appearance in a cartoon was the 1989 failed pilot episode, Pride of the X-Men. He had an Australian accent instead of a Canadian accent.
Welcome her. Wait, she's not joining the X-Men, is she? She's just a kid.
Wolverine battled a group called the Red Right Hand. As he killed every one of Red Right Hand's soldiers, the leader unveiled some vital information. All of the soldiers that Wolverine had just killed were his children. Wolverine had slept with many women over the century and had no idea how many children he had. The Red Right Hand tracked down every one of the kids and raised them as terrorists whose sole purpose was to kill Wolverine, unaware that he was their father. When Wolverine realized he was manipulated, he attempted suicide by jumping off a mountain. It failed. Tried again. Failed again, kept doing this over and over again until he felt like he punished himself enough. As I said, he was the 10th attempt to make the perfect weapon. Other weapons include Weapon 7 was a US soldier called Nuke, Weapon 12 was Huntsman, Weapon 13 was Phantom X, Weapon 14 was the Stepford Cuckoos, Weapon 15 was Ultimaton, and Weapon 16 was All God. After Jean Grey died, Wolverine founded his own school known as the Jean Grey School for Higher Learning. Wolverine teaches combat in the school. When he fights the Hulk, Wolverine's first objective is to cut his legs open. No matter how strong he is, the Hulk can't fight if he can't walk. After that, Wolverine will try to gouge his eyes out. He has killed 2 superheroes at least, Northstar and Hornet. He cameoed in a GLA #1, which is a DC comic that follows Superman and Batman's team, the Justice League. Of all the parallel universes, the most powerful version of Wolverine is Brother Mutant. Due to a magic spell gone awry, the Wolverine was fused with Quicksilver, Magneto, a male version of Scarlet Witch called Scarlet Warlock, and a telepath called Mesmero. This gave Brother Mutant the power of all 5 mutants. Although he is supposed to be the most powerful version of Wolverine, he was killed after 2 issues. Wolverine wore Iron Man's armor in 1 issue. YouTuber Colin Firth has created his own retractable claws just like Wolverine. Wolverine admitted that he loved Jean Grey in the same issue she turned into the Phoenix. Wolverine has been an agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. Jean Grey has admitted she always found Wolverine attractive. Deadpool claimed that he hacked Wolverine's Tumblr account. This may or may not be true. Wolverine only survived having his adamantium skeleton bonded to him because of his healing factor. So, surely a human in real life could never survive a procedure like that, right? No, of course not. Like, what do you... No, like, adamantium doesn't even exist, so of course not. But, using metal to strengthen an organism is possible. Researchers at Max Planck Institute of Microstructure Physics in Germany shot iodized metal into the silk string from a spider. This allowed the arachnid to shoot a mini harpoon. This has given scientists the idea that metal could be grafted onto a human skeleton, somehow, for increased durability. Adamantium is toxic to humans. Sometimes Wolverine has lost his healing factor, which then caused him to die very slowly through adamantium poisoning, but he always got it fixed before he succumbed to death. Although many animals like lizards and worms have rapid healing like Wolverine, this isn't very helpful for mankind, since this sort of healing can't be duplicated on humans. Or can it? In 2013, George Daly of Children's Hospital Boston and Harvard Medical School accidentally found a dormant gene called Lin28A in a mouse that caused rapid healing. He clipped one mouse's ears so he could tell it apart from the other mice. However, he discovered that the mouse's ears kept healing. When he clipped its toes, the same thing happened. By studying this gene, he learned it also exists in humans and it reverts certain cells to an embryonic state. Although this is yet to be successfully tested on humans, this could potentially help with nerve damage, paralysis, and brain damage. Originally, the writers were going to reveal that Wolverine used to be an actual Wolverine. Wolverine calls Charles Xavier Chuck. Wolverine is one of the few people who have survived being punched by the Hulk. He described the experience as follows: "There ain't no pain at first. It's like he hits you so damn hard you actually leave your own body. It's when you come back that you feel the pain." Wolverine was in love with a woman called Silver Fox. She was killed by Sabretooth. Because Sabretooth is a sadist, he attacks Wolverine every year on the anniversary of Silver Fox's death, just to remind them that if he ever loves anyone, he will take them away from him too. He calls this day Wolverine's birthday. Marvel realized that a lot of their fan base was Canadian. As a result, they decided to make Wolverine the first Canadian superhero. Wolverine carries a medical card stating that he is a war veteran with a metal plate in his head. He uses this to get through metal detectors since his metal skeleton always sets them off. Although he's proficient with his claws, he's also an excellent fighter with daggers and a katana. Wolverine once possessed the Muramasa blade, a sword that will disable a person's mutant abilities. If this sword cuts Wolverine, his mutant healing factor won't activate and he will die. He decided to give it to Cyclops to use against Wolverine in case he ever went rogue. The easiest way to kill Wolverine is to drown him. His healing factor won't be able to stop his brain's oxygen supply being cut off. It's also very difficult for Wolverine to swim, as his metal skeleton weighs him down. Japanese people often call Logan Gaijin. It's a derogatory Japanese term for Caucasians. Wolverine tried to commit suicide by allowing a train to drive over his head. It didn't work. Wolverine's best friend is Nightcrawler. Wolverine lost his healing power to a parasite. Although Beast prevented him from being poisoned by the metal in his skeleton, he couldn't return Wolverine's mutation to him, leaving him mortal. After he was left mortal, Wolverine felt fear for one of the few times in his life. He was scared of getting hit by a car, a loud noise, a gunshot, knowing he could die in a second. This was an alien concept to Wolverine and left him a nervous wreck. After losing his healing factor, he had to wear armor and use a gun for the first time since he became Weapon X. For decades, Wolverine could casually walk through radioactive active areas, knowing he could absorb all the radiation. After his healing factor was deactivated, he started to slowly die from radiation poisoning. Reed Richards from the Fantastic Four said he would probably die of leukemia if he doesn't get infected with endocarditis from all the bacteria he pulls into himself every time he uses his claws. The pain from unsheathing his claws was so intense that he stopped using them and instead relied on gauntlets with built-in claws. When Sabretooth learned Wolverine lost his healing abilities, instead of killing him, he scarred his face. Sabretooth took great joy knowing that Wolverine would remember that he's mortal every single time he looked in the mirror. After losing his healing factor, Logan decided to get a tattoo. He could never get a tattoo because his healing factor always removed it within hours. He got a tattoo of a rose to symbolize his first friend and love, Rose. When word got out that Wolverine lost his healing, every assassin, ninja, supervillain, mobster, and Hydra agent hunted him down in a desperate attempt to be known as the one who killed Wolverine. You'd think it'd be impossible for Wolverine to survive without his healing factor going against every superpowered lunatic under the sun. However, most of them just killed each other trying to get to Wolverine. By the time they reached him, they were exhausted, battered, and in need of a lot of blood. Wolverine easily killed most of who was left. And finally, Wolverine died, stopping a revamped version of Weapon X, turning 5 people into mutant weapons in a facility built by Dr. Abraham Cornelius, the same man who fused Wolverine's adamantium to his bones. Wolverine died after being covered in the poisonous adamantium metal, which caused him to smother to death. Special thanks to these fine people for all their help. Be sure to subscribe to Facts About Everything. Follow me on Twitter for updates on upcoming videos. Check out my Facebook page to let me know what subjects you want me to talk about in the future. Thanks for watching, see you again.